right, ladies and gentlemen, very, very big news have hit the esports landscape. We're going to have big changes coming into 2025. There was big speculation about what a third tournament would mean. And I think that these changes are shocking the whole world. We're going to take a look at the video first that Riot has, brought out. I read their articles and so forth, so I'll add any information that is missing. But let's listen to this first, just to make sure that everybody's looped in.
Hey everyone, I'm John Needham, President of Esports at Riot Games.
And I'm Chris Greeley, the Head of Strategy for LoL Esports.
Hey Chris, an amazing time in Chengdu at MSI.
Yeah, the tournament was great this year. I mean, Andre and Pooh stole our thunder, but what they failed to mention is that this year's MSI broke every viewership record we have ever had for MSI. We took a lot of feedback from the community last year, and our format changes this year were really well received.
Honestly, this tournament was the best it could have possibly been, in terms of the matchups, in terms of everything that we saw, the double elimination. And maybe Riot see that, maybe extend the double elimination to Worlds, I think that Riot chooses to listen to the fans when it makes sense for them to do so too. Like, you didn't want the regions to kind of, kill each other in the first rounds, like G2 and MAD and C9 and GG, right? So, there's that. We continue.
So I want to say thank you to all of our pros who made the trip to China to compete, and to everyone who tuned in to watch for this MSI.
Yeah, it was amazing. Earlier this year, I shared an update to our team partnership model for the LCK, LCS, and LEC, and how we're changing the way our revenue model works with a focus on sharing digital revenues with the teams that compete in our Tier 1 leagues. Today, we wanted to share the next phase of our plans, a unified split structure for all of our leagues, the addition of a third international event to our calendar,
that's what we know about.
Changes to our leagues in the APAC and Americas regions. We believe these changes are necessary to strengthen our path toward.
Bro, when I hear APAC, I think of something completely else. If you know, you know.
Overall, we're proposing to reduce the number of teams in our Tier 1 ecosystem. We're doing this to strengthen team participation in the new global revenue pool. Basically, with fewer teams to share revenues with, all the teams will get an increase in their revenue per team. This should also concentrate player talent into our best teams and improve the overall fan experience by making it easier to follow our sport and hopefully create more high-quality matches.
I want to add to this point, right? It's like, you know what? I will let the video play and then I'll give my thoughts at the end of it.
After these changes, League of Legends Esports could look similar to Valorant Esports or the BCT. We have taken a lot of lessons from the BCT, a model we are super happy with, and that's proven to be very successful in its first 2 years.
So starting in 2025, we're proposing that Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, Japan, Vietnam, and Oceania combine forces into a single multi-region league. This means that the top teams and top talent in these regions will be competing against each other in more competitive games with fresh new rivalries. In addition, we'd also like the LCS, CBLoL, and LLA to come together as an Americas league. The LCS and CBLoL would compete in the North and South Americas conferences respectively, with those current leagues retaining 6 of their current teams, plus a team each from the LLA. The final slot in each conference would be reserved for promotion and relegation from the Tier 2 system in each conference. We believe this provides a clear path to pro and expands players' opportunities to compete at the Tier 1 level. After these changes, there would be 5 leagues in our Tier 1 ecosystem: the Americas, APAC, the LEC, LCK, and LPL. There are more details on these changes in our lolesports.com article.
Speaking of international tournaments, we are adding a third event to the 2025 calendar that starts with regional play at the start of the year. Each of the now 5 regional leagues would have a single team qualify for the international event as part of this new tournament in March. We'll get to watch the best team from each region play against every other region in a round-robin format before crowning a champion through a bracket stage.
Yeah, it's gonna be super exciting. We're gonna use this tournament as a way to experiment with different competitive formats. For 2025, we'll be using a version of Fearless Draft Mode in the regional and international portions of the competition.
Fearless is gonna be so cool.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. Finally, with the addition of this new international tournament, we're using this as an opportunity to refine regional split structures. Going forward, each region will open the year with the new tournament or tournament split, and then continue on to 2 slightly shorter splits throughout the year, which will end with MSI and a regional championship respectively. Champions from each region will be crowned at this regional league championship rather than at the end of each split. And of course, the season will culminate, as always, with Worlds.
Now,
Oh, this is the wrong language. All right, homies. So basically, the gist of the changes, right, is that the big ones is that Americas is being combined, the Asia Pacific region is being combined, and all the regions are moving into a 3-split system where a regular champion is crowned, and that is the qualifier to the World Championship, meaning the LCK will have to restructure their system. LCS already have. The LPL will restructure this system. I think that basically LCK probably will have to adapt a single round robin format and then have their playoffs. I think that's what they're going to do, which means that they were going to have less regional matches in trade for this international event. The LPL have a bigger challenge because there are 17 teams. So probably they're going to split it into 2 groups, single round robin, and then teams are going to qualify into playoffs. 17 teams having a 3-split system is very, very hard to piece it together. And I think that's a lot worse. I was speculating at first for the LPL and the LCK that they were just going to basically qualify the team that is at the top of the standings midway through the split maybe, and then they take a break. I think that basically LCK and LPL, I think that they're going to be hurt by these changes because at least as an LPL and LCK enjoyer, I think that, you know, that portion of it is interesting. We don't know if LPL is going to drop teams because they have a completely different revenue model in that team, on that side. Very different revenue model. They're outside of the sphere of influence of like Riot in that sense, you know? They have a very different revenue model. So I don't want to speculate too much on them dropping teams or not dropping teams because all of those teams serve a purpose and the viewership and the money available is much greater in China than it is anywhere else. That is their biggest advantage, right? So let's talk about the changes to, of course, like I guess we could talk about the tournament. This tournament is going to be the top 1 team from each region. So it's going to be 5 teams sent to this, play a single round robin, best of 3, into then a bracket best of 5 a la old MSI. So in my mind, I don't like that too much. I would rather at this point just send 2 teams. Just send 2 teams. Old MSI was quite boring because I think in the end, I don't see the purpose of only sending 1 team. Like, why? Just extend it to 2 teams, make it more dynamic, let us see more regional matchups. I think MSI became so much better when 2 teams from each of the major regions came through. I think it became so much more interesting, and I think that there's no reason to make it just a single team, right? They say they're going to use this event to experiment with formats. I think that part is cool, but I hope that they extend it to more teams. I think it's a lot more interesting. Someone in chat asked, why not bring back Rift Rivals? LPL versus LCK brings me to the next point. When we look at these changes when it comes to APAC and the combination of the Americas, so everybody understands, we have this visual from Sheep Esports. It's going to be divided into 2 conferences. The North Conference will have 6 teams from the LCS, North America, which means 2 LCS teams are being cut, 1 team from LLA, and 1 guest team from Tier 2. So the most exciting news, through and through, I think everyone is super excited about this, is that there is a way to qualify into the league through tier 2. That part is amazing for the system. It brings me personal excitement that I could make a project with friends of mine, colleagues of mine, and qualify through and do things my own way. The promotional system being in place is amazing news, fantastic news. LEC, honestly, God bless. LEC should take notes, generally. CBLoL, 6 teams, 4 teams are being cut. 4 teams are being cut. 1 team from LLA and 1 guest team from tier 2. So you can guess right away, LLA is being kind of cut in half. Like LLA is being relegated to being tier 2, right? They're being tier 2, 1 team from LLA, 1 team from LA, 2 teams from LLA, that region. The rest of the teams are now tier 2. They can compete probably to qualify as a guest team, but that is going to be a very, very difficult thing for them to do. The main thing here, right? I think for most regions, if not every region, viewership is very top heavy. I think in a world where in esports, everything is online, everything is electronic, you can choose very easily who you want to be a fan of. It is very easy to become the fan of the best team. The strongest personality is very easy to choose. There's nothing that is tying you to a location geographically. So viewership is very top heavy. When I think of the LEC would benefit from having 8 teams, right? If we cut Rogue and Giants tomorrow, I think that the LEC would benefit because the active matchups that would be played are more exciting. Of course, there are fans of these teams that have their anecdotal story as to why they are fans of that team. And I'm not saying they are fanless, but in a world where you're trying to create the clashes of the biggest fan bases over and over again, you want international tournaments, and then of course, you want the big teams to face off against each other, right? Rogue was an LEC champ 2 years ago, and it doesn't matter at all. Does Rogue have any fans? Right? Did Mad Lions have fans before the eBuy project, after they won 2 splits? It's insanely difficult. It's insanely difficult to create momentum. Very, very hard. Unless you are driven by old school history, like G2 and Fnatic, or you're an organization that has, of course, the backing of a strong personality like Ibai or Kamito, and you have like this grassroots growth, right? Grassroots growth. G2 has a lot of fans, guys. G2 has a lot of fans. Fnatic has a lot of fans. I think my chat is being kind of delusional here by saying G2 doesn't have a lot of fans. Because the viewership speaks for itself. The biggest finals are between G2 and Fnatic. When those teams are missing, the viewership is extremely hurt. It's extremely hurt. And the reason I bring this up is Brazil is different. They are simply different. The region is different. I looked into it myself and I was so surprised. I was so surprised. I'm telling you, when I saw this graphic, look at this graphic. This is the distribution of viewership amongst all of the 10 teams. Look how damn even it is. The fans of Brazil, the Brazilian fans, are a fan of the league. They're a fan of the stories. They're a fan of the people, the community, which is very different from any other league. So different. And this is why the Brazilian fans are angry. What they've built, 4 teams are now being cut off. 4 teams with very close to the top end. Pain is a team that has won many, many titles. INTZ has 5 titles, I believe. Loud has won many titles. They are the champion and they're the 4th on this list. They are the 4th on this list. They have built something that is truly their own. And in a world where Brazil was suffering, Brazil would be put on the wayside. And I think that is what is pissing them off. If it was in reverse, LCS was booming and whatever, there was no support thrown in the direction of Brazil. There was no support thrown in the direction of Brazil. They had to do this shit on their own. And they've done it in a beautiful manner. A misconception is that people look at this and say, yo, but Brazil get a chance now to compete against LCS. They have chances now to qualify to the World Championship. You know, the most base things about the Brazilian fans is that they know their teams are not that great. They know. I co-streamed the finals. And to my surprise, when I say, yo, why are they losing the game? Every time a team gets snatched, they're inting. They say, Yamato, we know our macro is shit. We love it anyway. And the passion runs deep. The passion runs deep. I lost against Loud myself. And at the time, believe me, I was angry. I was so pissed. The AD carry doing this fucking biceps bot gap. And I have to wait. I have to wait in the interview room while Laura is taking picture with the bot gap dude doing bicep. I have to wait for Shocks to take a picture with the bot gap bicep dude. I have to wait. I was so pissed. So angry. But from an entertainment standpoint, I can see why that is so fucking fun to watch. That is so fucking fun to watch. Great fucking content. So in my mind, when I saw the news at first, I was like, okay, great. Probably in terms of the distribution, CBLoL is as same as any other region. I think when you look at LCK, you look at LPL, you look at LEC, you look at LCS, you can cut teams and improve the league. For CBLoL, I don't think it's the way. I don't think it is the way. Like LCK, if they have 8 teams, I think the league would be better. The amount of exciting games would be better. LEC the same way. It's harsh, but sadly it's true. And I thought at first it's true for CBLoL too, but it ain't. It really ain't. This graphic is very powerful. I wanted to read this because I read this the other day and I think it's so fitting. I think it's so fitting. I can't find the button. I don't know why. There it is. Let's read this. It was late afternoon on Thursday, June 6th, when Eric Katz, CEO of Myers Esports, called me on Discord, a little disoriented after a conversation with Riot Games. Without waiting for him to speak, I asked, they're going to merge the regions, right? It's no news that since the Valorant tests, the LCS decline, and the CBLoL ascension, apart from the quiet Latin American LoL scene, Riot was adding more and more ingredients to a dish that would be difficult to digest. I've been working with League of Legends since 2011, even before the Brazilian server opened. I casted first 2 CBLoLs in 2012 and 13. I worked at Riot from 2014 to 2018, seeing only one split for a year until the league's phase and the creation of the studio. As a journalist, I experienced the transition to the franchise system. I understand the scenario. It's part of my job to study, research, and create content about it. So as much as any professional position is to understand Riot's decisions to make changes for 2025 and beyond, prioritizing sustainability and better results for the leagues, it's practically impossible to digest a large part of them. Despite what Riot Games wrote in its official statement, the LCS has become a failure in terms of audience, results, and finances. Very true. Due to the organizations and the developers' greed. Very true. In looking the other way while the figures rose, I would say organizations, in a way, greed, but the recklessness with money that was pumped into it, like very artificially, right? In looking the other way while the figures rose higher and higher, inflating an obvious bubble that was bound to burst, money has created power for the few, broken the league and alienated those who the developer has always sworn to prioritize. The ordinary player, the fan, the pillar of League of Legends played from the top of Mount Olympus or from their bedroom. Riot's decision, although it makes sense from the perspective that the market and the organizations, once again turns a blind eye to the community, and the result is the CBLoL's death and the LLA's sepulture. The CBLoL has never lived off international results, and it won't if nothing changes. But the Brazilian League of Legends community has found a way among its ordinary people to transform a league that was falling apart into a league that is attractive to bigger audiences, brands, and in the end, organizations and the developer itself. A population that only accepted Riot's failure, but took charge of its destiny through engagement, interactions, content creation, memes, and much more. It brought organizations and players back to the scene, created narratives embraced by teams and by the developer itself, which made its cry a beautiful song, despite successive failures in international results. And now, with a tweet and an official statement, it dies in a message disguised as a triumph to save the failure of a system that went wrong. 4 franchise teams will be leaving the main stage, even if they're playing in Tier 2. From 30 captive slots for Brazilian players, we're down to 12. So I want to really highlight here is that they are changing the rules for imports. This is not something that I saw anywhere in the Riot rules, but this is also a very big deal, that they are changing the rule for imports, that probably North American players will not count as imports, and there will be a limit. Because if you count 12, 6, 2, 3 times 6, right? There's 18 slots for players that are non-Brazilian. This is something that wasn't shown in the past. So basically, 2 native required. For our Latin American hermanos, who in 2018 had 80 players between LLN and CLS, it will be down to 4 mandatory players through the 2 teams in the top leagues. Hostages, dark times. The feeling of betrayal hits the community because of the rebirth of the league through the hands of the community, which blindly entrusted Riot to continue working together. What was at stake was not just a change of format, new splits, international championships, and more money. Now I understand. It was the story of a community that in recent years had saved the esports scene on its own. Despite years without international results, it was back to filling events in minutes, breaking audience records, and innovating in content, tools, and interaction. It was a story of an AD carry who came back after 2 years to try and return to the top, BRTT. The story of a top laner who became a record holder, Robo. The story of the 5-time champion who's been fighting her demons for some time. The story of the 4-time runner-up who seeks revenge and her opponent who wants hegemony. The story of people who cried at victories and defeats, who cursed their own players and also embraced them when they came back on top. A story of caravans, epics, struggles, conquests, victories, and defeats. A story of 12 years, a CBLoL story. And no new league or better results will be able to fill that void. So, the LLA is basically Tier 2. 4 teams from CBLoL are going to be Tier 2. APAC, the same thing is happening over there, but I think, in my mind, right, the brutal reality is, I mentioned this before, but the brutal reality is, most fans are top team concentrated, right? Riot dreams that T1 and Genji make it to internationals. They dream that G2 Fnatic does, and now of course they hope that KC and the Mad Lions also bang hard. They pray that the biggest fan bases come to clash at international events. They pray for that. Because that's a big driver and indicator of viewership. The same thing happens regionally. The biggest finals were not Rogue versus Mad Lions. No, the biggest finals were Fnatic versus G2. Right? And of course it can be different now with K-Corp and Ibai, right? And Mad Lions, very different now because they have a very, very big fan base. They want big fan bases to clash. And the same thing they want regionally. The ideal way to make the numbers bang and to make sponsors happy and make the esports scene boom is for that to happen. But CBLoL is different. CBLoL is so different. So different. So the killing of 4 teams on the spot is harsh, man. Is harsh. I can't speak on what's going on in APAC, but I imagine that over there it's very top heavy too. I don't imagine that teams have much interest in teams beyond PSG or the team that Evie is on. But I'm speaking out of my ass. Maybe they are very unhappy there too. Because there are a lot of jobs that are lost in this process. The harsh truth is that esports is not a lucrative business. And there comes a point where the top teams with the biggest fan bases and the biggest generation of interest are just carrying, right? They are carrying the lower end. But I repeat, CBLoL is different. And that's what I think is so painful about this change, right? Because now I seem to understand it. And now I seem to understand it. I think the South Conference, I don't see why this wouldn't be 10 teams of Brazil. 10 teams of Brazil, make it 12. Why are we cutting teams? Let them figure out their format. And if you want to tap into that from the North American side and you want to get into and buy into the CBLoL momentum, don't do it at the cost of what CBLoL is. I don't see why it's so necessary to make it 10. 10 team, 10 salaries. Well, CBLoL is different. That's the thing. CBLoL is different, man. CBLoL is very, very different. I just think that you should keep these 10 teams, you know? The worst part of it all, right? These decisions, right? They are spreadsheet decisions. What I mean by this is to protect the bottom line. Notice how with LCS, bro, I'm happy that LCS is cutting down to 6 teams. I think that's great for them. Because that league is very different. And I feel the same about the LEC. I feel the same about LCK. And I think that LPO, it's harder to understand how the fan bases work. But if LEC was 8 teams, every matchup would be a banger. Every matchup would be a banger, bro. Every matchup. You either have, you know, like every matchup would just be a banger if it was 8 teams. Think about it, right? This is just a spreadsheet decision. I don't agree with that. Let's hear it. Let's hear the arguments against. Let's hear the argument against it. I think that you should keep the 10 Brazilian teams. What do you mean by Brazil is different? Brazil is different in the sense that look how their viewership distribution is. Look at their viewership distribution. Look at their viewership distribution. This is insanely unique. Loud is a team that wins the championship, and they are fourth. The fans of Brazil, they love the league. They love the league. They love the league. The next harsh truth that I tell you, Brazilian fans, is that they know how much you care. And they know that with this decision, you will also care. You will support the remainder of teams harder than ever. You'll want them to beat North America harder than ever. They are taking advantage of your passion because they know you will be there. They know you will be there. Angry or not, viewership distribution does not equal money though. For league to survive, someone has to take the hit, and Brazil is just the region that has to do it. But the thing is, what did Brazil get from anybody else? That's the thing. That's the whole point. What did Brazil get from anybody else? What did Brazil get from anybody else? Didn't get anything from anybody else. So you're saying that they should take the hit? They're not getting shit from anybody else. CBLoL is growing. Doesn't matter what we gave them. Life is not fair, brother. No, but your argument is just a piss argument then. If that's your response to me calling out that what you're saying doesn't make sense. For league to survive, someone has to take the hit. No one has to take the hit. The LCS teams, I'm telling you, like, it's very harsh too, because there's going to be fans of those LCS teams. There's going to be fans of those LCS teams. But those two teams there, I think they can go. There's bottom two teams of LEC can go. I agree. The thing is, I am very, very harsh when it comes to this, because people are going to lose their jobs. Players are going to lose their jobs. Coaches are going to lose their jobs. Managers are going to lose their jobs. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. But there's a lot of teams that don't generate any value. Casey and Mad going wouldn't be great. Obviously not. Casey and Mad is, regardless of their results, they will be way higher up in a graph like this. They will be way higher up. Way higher up. So I'm looking at this from a very, very unbiased perspective. Because I think breaking apart the CBLoL and making the teams less, like if the Brazil teams agree to share the revenue between 10 in what they've had, I think that's perfectly fine. CBLoL is fucking trucking on. They are rocking and rolling. They are rocking and rolling. Just keep the 10 teams alive, mate. Let them decide how they split their revenue, man. I think this is very true. And I think the part about imports, right? The part about imports is like teams want to be competitive. And in this system, you are very incentivized to be competitive. So the Brazil teams have every reason to just grab the imports, right? Because the amount of native Brazilian players that you need to have is very low. Very low. And I repeat, it's like Riot's gonna take advantage of the fact that the Brazilian fans care so much. They're gonna take advantage of that. Because you will still care. Because it's your region, right? They will abuse that. But slowly, slowly along the way, maybe the soul dies out, you know? I'm certain from Riot's point of view, in terms of what they gain, okay, what Riot gains from the CBLoL, I don't think it's that much. So this is just a spreadsheet decision for them. The LCS, in terms of the revenue, I'm sure, in terms of how they see the metrics, in terms of advertising for the game and skins and so forth, this is, you know, this is also in their mind. Another thing that is scary in a way, another thing that is scary, I would say, is that this wasn't leaked. We could speculate that this would happen, because a lot of people did. Don't get me wrong, we could speculate that this happened. But it was announced without any leaker announcing it. We speculated that this would happen, but we didn't know when exactly. We could guess that this would happen based off of VCT. But the fact that it didn't get out means to me that Riot didn't tell the teams. Riot didn't tell the teams at all. They made the decision themselves. And they are the game developers, so they can do it. But they made this decision themselves. And I don't know how the process of choosing which 4 teams from CBLoL are gonna go out. Which 4 teams are gonna go out? Which 2 LCS teams are gonna go out? What if no one wants to leave? What happens then? What happens is, are there clauses in place in their franchise contracts that they can be bought out for a set amount? What if 10 CBLoL teams say, we are not leaving? We are not leaving, like Leonardo DiCaprio. So we shall see. We shall see. Looking at LEC as an extension, I want this in the LEC. Bro, I want guest teams from ERLs, and I want less teams in the LEC. I do. I do. And the thing is, someone's gonna listen to this. Yo, I'm a fan of this team. What the fuck, Yamato? Fuck you, man. I get that. But I'm telling you, I am telling you for the longevity of the game, you want the key matchups to be played. You want to see great matchups every single day. Think about the LEC format, okay? Think about the LEC format. 2 teams get eliminated after 3 weeks of play. You know why people celebrated that? Because it's a shit competitive system. It's terrible. But people celebrated that because, yeah, fuck yeah, 2 teams that we don't like are not gonna play. That's why people were happy about the format. The truth is the format competitively is ass. It's ass. Complete ass. But people were happy about it because 2 bottom teams would not make it through. And that's what people celebrated. You want the big games to happen. They happen at international events. They happen most of the time in playoffs. Right? And you just want to make it happen more often. You want big fan bases to clash. You want them to clash. You want that to happen. So when a team with a smaller fan base, it's almost impossible to regain that momentum unless you're a big streamer that is creating a team from the ground up, because you need to bring viewership from somewhere. You have the legacy organizations that have the history and the esports fans and the fans of the league. Like if you're a fan of the league, most fans are fans of G2 or Fnatic, right? And then for the other teams that have the biggest fan bases, they are moved by very big personalities that pull viewership from their own interests, right? From their own interest. Meaning KC and Ibai. And then you look at the organizations that are trying to be the next G2 of Fnatic, and they're just playing catch up in a game that they will never catch up in, because Rogue has won the championship, but that didn't move the needle at all for them. Mad Lions, before the Ibai and the Movistar synergy, they couldn't gain any momentum with winning the championship. No one gave a fuck. No one gave a shit. And that's a harsh reality, guys. Because in esports, you can choose to be a fan of anybody. But that's why I hope that they fight to preserve the CBLoL teams because of how well distributed the fandom is around what CBLoL is. I think if it was presented as an extension of what the CBLoL is, and let's say you had the CBLoL system and the LLA team was invited and you had a guest from tier 2 as well, and the CBLoL system would be intact, and then it would be a cross-conference play against LCS, I think that would be very exciting. But it seems to come at the cost of 4 teams. 4 teams. That is very steep. And my impression is that the Brazilian fans don't give a fuck about the fact that they can bring more competitive players to the region. Because I'm telling you right now, a lot more players will want to play in Brazil now. A lot more players will want to play in this league. And they will have the opportunity to do so. Because they want to qualify to the World Championship. They want to compete against the LCS. A lot more players will want to play here. It will make sense to do so. You are going to have big names in this South Conference wanting to play here. But it doesn't seem like the fans of Brazil are going to care. But the intention of Riot is to create... The intention of Riot is to create as many clashes with big fan bases as possible. I just think that CBLoL is unique. And I think they should try to keep more teams intact. And what CBLoL has created intact. Because I think in the long run, that will benefit everyone too. If you rip out the soul and it becomes measured in success again, then it will be just an extension of the failure that North America is. Because CBLoL will slowly turn into a region that is getting imports, getting strong players for the purpose of competing in, of course, when the conference clashes. And if they are not competing well there, then you think to yourself, what was the point of hiring these players? When we had our storylines, we had our community, and we didn't give a fuck about, you know, the other side. All right. Is there anything else? It's like, jobs are lost. It's tough. I think in a lot of leagues, it should happen. Esports is a very top-heavy affair. It's like, the cool thing about CSGO, right? The cool things about CSGO is either you have the big teams clash up against each other because tournaments happening all the time. And these tournaments, like these teams come from Brazil, they come from Finland, they come from Sweden, they come from there, they come from everywhere, they clash, right? Or you have some underdog that has made some cool ass fucking story and they climb their way up, right? There's no lose-lose, you know? There's always some exciting element to it, you know? So you want to create a system that makes as big clashes as possible always. That's the goal of Riot. Make big fan bases clash. And give the opportunity for the outlier story to come through. I want the outlier stories to come through in the LEC, man. I want that to be there again, man. I pray, I hope that can be possible. I really hope so. Really, I really hope so. Another benefit, guys, of having less teams in the league is that you have a lot more flexibility when it comes to format. The amount of games that it adds to just add 2 teams, like going from 10 to 8, you have a lot more flexibility in playing best of 3s and also playing best of 3s that people are actually excited about. Because playing best of 3s with 10 teams, there's going to be teams that people don't have interest in. So I feel the pain. I feel the pain and I understand. At first I didn't understand, you know. I didn't understand. At first I didn't understand, but I get it now, you know. I get it. The fans of CBLoL are fans of the league, you know. They are fans of the league. In LEC, the people that are fans of the league are fans of Fnatic and G2. And then you have the other fan bases, you know, in KC and Ibai. Those are the 4 largest fan bases, right? And then everybody comes trickling after. Team Heretics have Jankos, right? If Team Heretics lose Jankos, where are their fans going to be? I know that they have some streamers and co-streamers involved and so forth. That's cool and all, but it's not at the same scale as the other 4 that I mentioned, right? There are LEC enjoyers, yes, but the numbers speak very differently, man. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying for the benefit of the product, it is very clear what bangs and what doesn't. And that speaks more volume than, for example, my Twitch chat, because we are very nuanced viewers, right? Very nuanced viewers. Yeah, I don't like the changes to LCK and LPL either. I don't. I don't know what else to add. Like, I understand where Riot is coming from. Like, I understand where Riot is coming from. It's like they mentioned that MSI had the biggest viewership ever. Yeah, because like the biggest LPL players were at the tournament. Genji and T1 was at the tournament. You had China versus Korea being played multiple times. You know, you are hoping that this happens all the time. G2 and Fnatic. G2 and Fnatic is hype, bro. It's very hype. LEC is the most awake. Like, sure, if Mad Lions Koi and Casey went to MSI, that would have been crazy too, right? That would have been insane too, if that happened. That would have been mental. And I think it's fair from Riot to be like, yo, we need to trim some fat. We need to trim some fat. Like, they really want to trim some fat. Another conversation that occurred, right, is minor regions dying. It's like, I understand why it's sad. But the issue is, there is nothing. If I'm in Australia, why the fuck wouldn't I want to watch LEC, LCS, LCK, LPL over Oceania? What kind of arguments can Oceania create? They can't. They can't. So to build that value is so extremely hard. It's so extremely hard. And I don't think Riot should be carrying the minor regions just to like carry your anecdote. That's why CBLoL is different. Because this is a minor region that is increasing and increasing in size. That's why CBLoL is different. They've managed to grow without the help of anybody. They did it themselves. They did it themselves. That's why it's different. Don't get me wrong. I don't know what is going on with the Japanese league or the Macau league or Hong Kong league. My assumption is that no one gives a fuck about these leagues. I might be wrong, but I'm assuming that no one gives a fuck about these leagues. They're a fan of maybe the top team in the region, maybe Eddie, right? SoftBank Hawks. I don't think anybody gives a fuck about these leagues. I'm guessing here. Why would they not just watch LCK, LPL, or whatever, you know? What's the point? Bro, I am from Sweden. I've never watched any Swedish tournament. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. But CBLoL is different because they've managed to grow on their own. But you do cheer for EU, not because I am from EU, right? It's because I share history with all of the players. I cheer for EU because I competed in EU. I don't care. I don't care that, like, Europe. What are you talking about, Big Bong Hit? I don't know, Big Bong Hit, you're just doing strawman arguments. I don't know, you're shadow boxing with whatever the fuck. The thing is that I don't get why they had to cut down the amount of teams. Yeah, that's the main thing for me too. That's the main point I made too, you know? Like, why didn't they keep CBLoL intact? Because I think CBLoL is a good thing to nurture. It's a good thing to nurture. I think the movement of the CBLoL is a good thing to nurture. But the minor regions that are on a downwards trend, I understand why they want to kill them. Because this is a question of payouts, then just divide it over 10 too. Guys, I think that the revenue is divided by teams within a league, not per team. Like, you're thinking that the CBLoL teams are getting the same as LCK teams? I don't think the distribution works like that. That they take, oh, there's 50 global teams. We're dividing our pool of money by 50. That's not, I'm 100% sure that they're doing that. But I do understand. The thing is, I do understand. From a spreadsheet point of view, LCS probably generates more money. North America generates more money. I just think that they should have kept CBLoL intact if they wanted to suck off the teeth of CBLoL. You know? Keep it intact. So I repeat, like, from a money point of view, for Riot, if we're looking at the greed, making LCS strong is important to them, money-wise. The American market is extremely lucrative. From Riot's point of view, the Brazilian market is not as lucrative. It isn't. So that's what they are thinking about. This is a spreadsheet decision. But I think the risk is that you're killing what CBLoL built, because I think that you can enjoy more of it in the long term if you keep it intact. You can take a bigger advantage of it in the long term by keeping it intact. Because my concern here is that CBLoL will be measured by how successful they are competitively, because it will become probably an import region. Because why wouldn't you? If you have less restrictions on you, why wouldn't you look at talent from every possible pool? There's already Korean imports, right? In 2 slots. But now you're only required to have 2 Brazilian native players. So whichever North American players that might not make it through will want to play in CBLoL. This is just speculation, but I think that LCS and international tournaments and the LEC, basically NEOM, the NEOM broadcast, it's all sold together in terms of how the advertisement is being made. And I think that the LCS dying would be very bad. would be very, very bad for the ecosystem. Very bad for the ecosystem. LCS did lose a world slot and an MSI slot. Yes, they did. But once again, right? The indirect solution is that you're going to have LCS players play here. That's what's going to happen. All right. I think there's nothing else to say, guys. I think that I've covered it all. It's time for Elden Ring, guys. It's just simply time for Elden Ring. The thing is, I think so to just summarize. Guest from tier team from tier 2. Amazing. Fantastic. Love it. All right? LLA, I can't speak on. If LLA is a minor region that is dying, I think that the minor regions that are dying shouldn't be kept on life support. Esports is global. Fans can be fans of any team globally. There's very little incentives to be stuck geographically. If there is a minor region on life support, I understand why Riot wants to kill it. CBLoL is different. It's a region that is thriving. Why would you want to cut it? For LCS, making it 6 teams for the sake of squeezing a little LLA and a guest from tier 2, that is based. Based. I love it. LCS fandom, top heavy. Cut the freeloaders. Let the big spenders and the teams with the big fan bases clash against each other time and time again. We want to see C9, Team Liquid, CLG, TSM. Oh shit. Fuck. Another reason why Brazil fans are pissed. Because LCS really squandered it, man. Really squandered it. Really squandered it. Well, TSM and CLG had such a big advantage. Had such a big advantage, guys. Oh my lord, they had such a big advantage. LCS had such a big advantage. LCS was by far the biggest league. By far, man. LCS was so massive, bro. Everyone was a fan of CLG and TSM back in the old days. Season 2, 3, Team Curse came in, Team Liquid, whatever, you know. They fucked themselves over, man. VC money. VC money. Ah. FTX money. Ah. $6 million for Sword Art. Ah. Huni, best agent in existence. Ah. C9. Getting perks, but selling him to Vitality. Recuperating the amount. Damn. Jack Etienne. Kinda based. Kinda based. I think that's something that pisses off Brazil fans too, bro. Definitely. LCS done gooped their whole damn region, you know? Lost all of the momentum. They had the ball, they dropped it 18 times. Dropped it 18 times, man. TSM, FTX scandal, Jesus Christ. So, CBLoL, right? If you try to look at this positively, right? It's like you've been elevated in your status, right? And Riot is going to take advantage of how passionate you are. The thing is, how angry people are any emotion in the short term is good publicity. You know? You're going to support these Brazilian teams harder than ever, you know? And when they face up against the LCS teams, you're gonna want that they fuck them up. You're gonna scream for them harder than ever. Your hatred towards LCS will drive engagement. My concern is that in the long term, these 6 teams from CBLoL will be filled up with imports, and it will just be a comparison league against the LCS. It'll just be a comparison league because of how the import rules have changed. And that's it. It's time for Elden Ring, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Elden Ring. I know that that's what Brazilians, they want CBLoL. I understand what the Brazilians want. I don't think the fans will remain passionate if CBLoL just gets measured in how good they are. That's not what they want. CBLoL fans understand that the region was not that great. They don't care. They want to see the memes and the passion and the community, and they want to see CBLoL. They want to see CBLoL. And it's working, man. It's working. It's really, 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 really working. So keep it intact. And if you want to suck from the CBLoL teeth, okay? If LCS wants to suck from it, at least don't kill 4 teams in the process. Keep CBLoL intact. Keep CBLoL intact. And let's do LCS versus CBLoL to qualify. All right. Based. Do you think CBLoL fans will be pissed then? They'll be like, oh, we have our own league and now we get to have fucking playoffs against the LCS teams? Damn. That would be cool. But losing 4 teams, blood. Damn. It's harsh. It's harsh. But okay. It's just, it would be really sad if the only reason this happens is because we want the numbers to match. That would be very sad. Because don't get me wrong, if all the teams in CBLoL agreed to this, if all CBLoL teams agreed to this, I wouldn't say shit either. I wouldn't say shit, by the way. If the CBLoL teams wanted to do this, I'd be like, okay. That's their prerogative. I'm not going to speak on it. But the fact that they found out one day before, and they just found out, and I just read the post of LeonButcher. Nah, man. That's not how it went about, man. So, I repeat. I appreciate what Riot Games are doing. I appreciate it because they're trying to trim the fat. But let's not trim this Wagyu beef here. Let's let it grow, you know. Because we want to keep them calves coming, you know. Let's keep CBLoL intact because it's working. It's working, man. It's growing. Beautiful. All the minor regions that are dying, it sucks. It sucks that jobs are disappearing. It sucks that opportunity is disappearing. I get that, but I don't think Riot should keep anybody on life support. If they want to make LEC smaller, I welcome that. If they want to make LCK smaller, I welcome that. If they want to make LPL smaller, I welcome that. So on that end, I'm a capitalist. And I understand from their point of view as well, to push, this is a spreadsheet decision. Spreadsheet decision. The LCS staying alive is far more important for Riot's balance. And that's why they are ready to destroy parts of CBLOL for it. A ruthless, cold decision by Riot. Ruthless and cold. But I can understand. Do you think CBLOL could be competitive with 10 teams? Consolidating the league into fewer teams creates a higher density of quality of matches. That's why CBLOL is different. They care about every match. Like there is interest in every fucking team. There's interest in every fucking team. Which is super cool. Super cool, man. There's interest in every team. That is super cool. Keep in mind, one thing that I can say to play Riot's advocate here is, I don't know what Riot contributes to actually keep, like if they are spending money for CBLOL to function, then I have a little bit more understanding. But if Brazilian teams are generating their own revenue and they're keeping the league alive on their own, that's horrible. All right. It's time, guys. All right. I think the key thing with LEC and LCS is the fact that the English broadcast, they have their own sponsorships, and I think that those sponsorships pay, right? There's a Neon broadcast, the English broadcast, North America, Europe, like something like this, right? Neon broadcast. I understand that from that they generate revenue that is distributed to LCS, while Korea is managing their own business, is what I understand. But I could be wrong. I'm just speculating.